Hello my friends, and welcome back to this exploration of NieR Automata's weapon stories. We are almost finished, and we're going to try to finish up these last 6 all in this one episode. So let's jump in. System Yorha, unit data uploading, checkout HC, close, IO, duplicate core, find Yorha unit, updating data, checking data, purge conversion log, purge unit data, purge system data, exit. And this is somewhat connected perhaps to the Yorha units who are trying to defect from the organization. And this, in my opinion, it's been a while since I've gone through the story, is showing their attempts to go ahead and remove themselves from the system so that they can't be followed. It's not very much, nothing deeply philosophical we can take out of that, but let's move on to the Type 3 fists. The man wailed an inhuman scream as he brought his fist down on his opponent's skull. He brought it down again and again and again, until the victim was nothing more than a splatter of blood and bits. The man had a beautiful wife that drove everyone wild with jealousy. They lived a simple, happy life. Yet the man always strove to keep his wife safe above all else. One night the man came home to find a stranger in his bed. His wife told him that he had forced himself on her, at which point the husband flew into a rage and vowed to exact revenge. The man bought a weapon from a craftsman famed for forging instruments of pain, then used it to punish his wife, for he could not abide that she failed to protect her virtue. His revenge was complete. So this story is harkening back to some very classic, we'll say classic, sexist treatments of women in the virtues of purity or chastity, depending on which region of the world you're in. It's chastity under many of the Christian traditions, purity under Japanese traditions. They manifest slightly differently, but ultimately, for many women, it came to a point where their sexuality was their only commodity that determined a woman's worth. And this man, being a supreme wielder of violence, decides that if his wife, who he supposedly loved, supposedly thought was beautiful, supposedly respected, suddenly lost that thing that society had decided determined her worth, then she would be worthless, and that reflected negatively on him. Therefore, it was an attack on him. And so he gets to take out his revenge. And unfortunately, as much as we would want to think this is a story, an exaggeration, someone goes and buys some weapon of imaginary torture, this old fist with 3 spikes on it, to seek out to do some horrible atrocity. Well, no, the simple fact of the matter is that part of feminist philosophy, which is very important and central to the themes of NieR alongside the existentialist philosophy, is that when you force this value upon people, the people themselves end up having to pay the price, and there's really nothing in terms of violence that this woman could have done to protect herself. The man decided her worth. The man took her life because that worth was gone. Didn't punish the rapist who did this to her. Only felt the affront to himself, and so acted selfishly in violence, and through violence maintained the sexist hierarchy, the sexist dynamic that had determined the woman's value was based on that purity, that virtue, quote-unquote virtue. And what we have as the picture is a bloody shield, representing someone trying to protect something but ultimately destroying it. Virtuous grief. I see you in my sleep, restless sleep. My heart flies to pieces each time I wake. I burn to see you in the real world. I hunt for the woman who pines for you. The scream pleases me. Your body and heart shall be mine. Your heart, I long for it, yet it does not return my love in kind. All you care for is your cold, dead wife. So I must, at least, take your body. Your head is mine, beautiful head. The eyes that scorned me are so lovely now. Hate me if you like, begrudge me all. You are still mine forever. That's messed up. These fist weapons are getting dark, because that is showing the perturbance of the virtue of love that is being espoused in many of the other weapon stories who use love as a counterbalance to violence, but also bringing back in the themes of being over-obsessed with a single virtue, a single ideology that will result in oppressing other values, other legitimate values. And this manifests as a psychopathic killer who is obsessed with this man, who is stalking him, who probably, definitely kills the woman he's actually in love with in order to try to get to this person with delusions of that person being in their way. And then when that doesn't work, continues this psychopathic killing, because rather than love, what the person is experiencing is obsession. Being too focused on some virtue of love that you tell yourself can result in the perturbance of the value, the turning of what may have been a legitimate value into something destructive and violent, not a value at all, by being too focused on one specific thing for too long and encouraging horrible acts of atrocity out of that focus. And once again, a yin-yang style picture of light and dark swirling together to emphasize a legitimate value of love being perturbed into a non-real value, something disgusting. Cruel lament. I take up the sword in battle for you. My heart knows not fear, instead burning with a love strong and pure. I swing my sword for you, splattering blood across my sleeve. I smile as the chaos continues. I brandish my sword for you, victims unaccountable, victims beyond measure. Their dying wails become the song of my sleep. I cry out, give me your head. I capture you as you flee and take it. I do all this for you, for you, for you. Who are you? And again, from a different perspective, this time of a soldier going off to war to protect the values that they have at home, forgetting those values as he becomes obsessed with the means by which he is conducting those values. And that means is mainly in the form of violence. Violence which takes over, which controls the person, which becomes the only thing that a person can do once they give themselves over to violence. The values disappear when all there is violence. I feel as though I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating because the entire game is focused on these themes. Just as the previous NieR was very much focused on themes of violence and meaning and how they interact. And again, ending in a story of giving me your head, which is very appropriate for these cruel weapons of, cruel, maybe virtuous, weird weapons of basically being a samurai, a shogun war mask to represent the heads themselves that you are actually wielding as weapons. Moving on to Machine Head's story. I lack parts. I am useless. My existence is unnecessary. I tried so hard. Mommy. So, again, very simple. The person lacks the capacity for any action, so they feel useless, unnecessary. They've lost meaning, even though they attempted to find it, which is the natural human condition under existentialist philosophy, seeking value and being unable to find it, yet being unable to stop seeking. And last but not least, Emil Head. 9-2 in the year 12-4-22. I confirmed that the machine life forms released by the aliens have reconstructed their network. I've started to see units with gravity controlling capabilities as well. 10-15, year 12-4-22. I was spawned about a week ago, so I don't have clear recollections of anything before that. Say, I wonder where the original disappeared to all those millennia ago. 12-14, year 12-4-22. I confirmed that the 25th one born after me has stopped his biological activity. Although we're technically immortal since we can respawn indefinitely and all, we're still not exempt from death. 1-19, year 12-4-23. Our memories are only copies, so they're pretty vague. That android wearing black, I have the feeling I've met her before. She had a complicated look on her face, but I can't remember anything. So this is chronicling a part of the story that was placed in as flavor for people who had read the stories that happened after the release of NieR, who played the original NieR, to follow Emil as he continues through the world and is essentially an immortal-ish observer of the events that take place in this story, yet he becomes an unreliable observer simply because his memories fail at every copy of himself that he makes in order to persist throughout time, in order to fight against the aliens and protect the world that his friends loved. And at the very end, his memories are so vague that he only has a strange feeling that probably harkens back to Kaine and his connection to her, and finds that emotional connection through that association with 2B, with A2, with the androids of Yorha. And really that's just part of the story, part of the lore building, something for the fans, and it makes an emphasis of the importance of memory in shaping who you are, the feelings you have and what you pursue, but nothing very concrete. And with that, we will end our exploration of NieR Automata's weapon stories. Because that's all of them. We did it. It took months. It didn't take an entire year, thank goodness. But I'm glad I went through it. I feel as though some really quality conversations came out of this. However, as we went on, the themes became repetitive, necessarily, because a story can only talk about so much, you know. And, however, I did enjoy my time. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And I suppose I should end this the way I end every video, it seems, by jumping off, by jumping off into something. You'll notice I went and put on the funny developer heads for the bullets, just because it's the stupidest thing ever, and I love it. I just wish he could shoot some of the indestructible bullets so we can see the other head. Thank you. And before I go, let me just go ahead and say, let's hit all of the YouTube buttons down there, just because it helps the channel. Like, share, subscribe. Like in particular, just because the like button is the main way the algorithm uses to put this video out in front of other people who might be interested. So I would really appreciate that, as well as sharing it with any friends, sharing the series as a whole with any friends you think would enjoy it. Thank you again, and remember, stay true.
Commencing fishing. Report.